Hello, my name is Łukasz Pazera. I am an independent visual artist and programmer from Poland. I would like to show you Dog of Zone, which is my contribution to the Siggraph 2020 art gallery program. Hello again. You've watched an edited recording of Dog of Zone interactive projection. Now, I would like to share a little bit more information about this project with you. So first, I will cover the interactive projection itself. Then I will introduce you to the concept of zone, which is a core concept behind this and many other of my works. Next, I will discuss the artistic vision behind this undertaking. And finally, I will close with revealing a little bit about the method that I developed to complete this artwork. So let's get started. As I already mentioned, Dog of Zone is an interactive projection. The installation setup involves a projection screen and an active area that on the drawing here you can see marked with the green outline. Now the installation reacts to your presence and movements within the designated area. Each strong enough movement is going to trigger a response. On the visualization here you can see that when the figure turns red, it means that you're moving fast enough to trigger a response. And this influence over what gets shown on the screen makes you in fact a co-director of events. This way you can choose between the different type of experience that you want to have. So you can have more faster, more compressed and intensive experience, or perhaps a slower, more contemplative one. The projection itself consists of a fixed set of pre-rendered animation sequences, and these sequences are then edited together in real time based on your input. So in the end, even though the number of source material is fixed, still each projection run is unique because it's a unique combination of these pre-rendered sequences. The progression of events is driven by the script of interaction, and this script has three main stages: manifestation, deconstruction, and transformation. So it all starts with manifestation. As you enter the zone initially, the zone is going to manifest itself to you by spawning the duck into existence. From that moment on, the duck is bound to you, which means that it's going to exist only as long as you stay within the bounds of the zone. When you leave, the duck gets erased. Now when you make a move, the dog will react and will turn to you, and the phase of deconstruction begins. Your further activity is going to cause more reactions from the dog and will also cause a gradual disintegration of its form. And this process cannot be stopped. It can only be slowed down by the less amount of activity on your part. Now, as the deconstruction progresses, the transition from figurative to abstract progresses as well, which means that the more deconstructed or disintegrated the dog is, the less figurative and the more abstract it becomes. And that goes up to a point at which the tonal inversion happens, and the dominant tone is black. So at that point, the dog kind of tries to break through this and come back, and the moment of suppression does happen, but when the dog comes back, it's in a different form. It doesn't react anymore, it's vulnerable, and your next strong enough movement will actually induce its final transformation. So when you do this movement, the dog turns into a still image. And this image stays on screen as long as you stay within the bounds of the zone. If you leave, the image disappears, the dog disappears, and you're left with the white lit wall. The script of interaction is implemented using a network of states and events. This network represents all the potential of interaction at every stage of the projection. And here you can have a peek at the script of interaction during the projection run. And as you can see by looking at where the red solid is, the representation of viewer is traveling across different states and is triggering the events, which in turn drive the visuals and sounds that build the experience. So what is the zone? My concept of zone refers to Roadside Picnic, which is a science fiction novel written by brothers Arkady and Boris Strugatsky and published in 1972. I read this book sometime in my teens, and the concept somehow stuck with me ever since. So for me, zone is a seemingly dead space that becomes alive in the presence of human being. And then it becomes almost like an entity, but an unstable, uncontrolled, unpredictable, and dominating one. I've been exploring the concept of zone for quite a few years now. I've been doing a series of landscape paintings and drawings that I called postcards from the zone. And I have also been doing series of still computer graphics that I called dogs of zone. And these computer graphics were made to both contrast and complement landscape paintings. So I imagine that if they are presented together on an exhibition, for example, they would be quite far apart visually, but they would still complement each other and they would represent the same world. Now, the Dogs of Zone graphics, they can be considered a prelude to the interactive projection. And that's because I always knew that I wanted this concept to be something more than just a series of still images. And that brings us to the animated dog of zone, or a dog of zone in motion. So for me, the dog was always an object of the zone, its manifestation and representation. So it's not really an independent entity, it's more just the way the zone manifests itself to you. And in motion, in addition to this, in motion, it's also a visualization of the raw and aggressive motion. Okay, so let's move to artistic vision. If I was to sum up the whole visual concept for Dog of Zone with a single statement, that would be Franz Kline in motion. So that's a strong reference to abstract expressionism of mid-20th century. And two problems I was especially interested in here were expression through gesture and expression through motion, but within the digital environment. Here you can see an old drawing of mine in which I was already tinkering with this idea of expressing through motion. But in case of Dog of Zone, I wanted to find a similar personal form of expression, but within the digital environment, which normally is not as direct as the traditional one. My idea was that I will start with a small-scale expressive drawing, and then I will enlarge this small-scale gesture to dimensions of the entire projection. And that's actually quite analogous to the way Franz Kline was doing at least some of his paintings, because he was doing small sketches and then using projection techniques, enlarging them on a wall and doing a painting according to that. In my case, the challenge was how to transpose this expressive gesture from the drawing into the three-dimensional digital space, but with preserving the original drawing's qualities because I didn't want to lose this small scale gesture. So I had to find a method that would allow me for a free-form expression on each stage of the creative process. I wanted to feel like a traditional artist, and I needed an organic and direct workflow for both animation and drawing, programming, and even sound recording as well. So in the end, what I came up with, I called it a structured improvisation. I built a digital environment that allowed me for improvisation, but within the precisely defined bounds. So as long as I knew what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, I had quite a bit of freedom within these limits. So let me break down this process a little bit for you now. The first stage is animation, and animation consists of two layers. The first layer is 3D animation. It's the standard keyframe animation, but it's sketchy, jittering with exaggerated movements. Also, there's no acting, so motion is used really as just another means of expression. Then, once the 3D animation is done, hand-drawn textures go on top, so that's the second layer of animation. And each frame of animation requires a separate texture drawing, so you can imagine that's quite a bit of drawing involved. And that's why the drawings were made really fast, so I gave myself approximately 3 to 5 minutes per drawing at maximum. And again, this was to preserve the expression, so I never worked up the drawing, and if anything didn't look right, I was just repainting it from scratch. Then the drawings were projected onto animated model using camera projection. And projection camera placement was tweaked pretty much for every frame. So again, this is very direct kind of frame by frame approach. Very traditional one, you could say. And the textures, when they were projected or applied to the three-dimensional model, they weren't actually applied the way you saw on previous slides. They were applied as carving displacement maps. And this was a way in which the manual expression from drawings were embedded into the solid three-dimensional form. And that was forming the final sequence, as you can see here. A quick note on sound. I wanted to produce the sound in a similar way in which I did with visuals. So I recorded all the sounds on electric guitar using portable amplifier. So very direct, very simple setup. There was no sound post-processing involved whatsoever. All the sound modeling was done directly in the amplifier and recorded straight to the computer. So what you hear during the projection is actually what I recorded. And the whole experience was quite freeform and expressive as well. So there were no takes, just pure improvisation, and even some bits were recording live just while looking at the projection running. To sum the method up, what I wanted to achieve is to be able to try new ideas with almost full quality output within the single day or within the few hours. So I wanted to be able to create a new piece of animation, texture it, render, then record some sound, and even program some new interaction element if that was needed. In this process, there was no distinction between pre-production, production, or post-production. So that was what I was going towards, and what was left was almost pure creation. And I think that's it. That's all I prepared for this presentation. I hope you found it interesting, and if you want to know anything more, please go to my website. Thank you for watching.